however many games of the season, donate for your favorite punter. Do it. We're encouraging fans to get involved. So compassion.com/punts for purpose. And it's also on my Instagram, bpinion05. It's at the top.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, keeping Jesus in the sports conversation. Here's your host for today's show, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
It's always great to welcome back Bradley Pinion, Super Bowl champion, Atlanta Falcons punter, to Sports Spectrum's podcast. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me on. It's always a good time when we get to sit down and chat, man.
Absolutely. It's always fun. I was thinking about this before we get into Punts for Purpose and Compassion and the great work you're doing there. Where's your Super Bowl ring? Like, where do you keep that thing, and how often do you break it out?
It stays in a locked safe. And I've worn it, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times since we won the Super Bowl. So it stays put up. I bring it out every now and then just to show somebody if they haven't seen it or if they want to look at it again or whatnot. But yeah, it stays pretty locked up tight with a good insurance policy. That's where that thing stays.
I would imagine so. So. Well, let's talk about this Punts for Purpose. This is such a cool thing. You do great work, and you're involved with Compassion International. They're a great partner with us, and they're great friends with all that they do and love what they do. Tell us what Punts for Purpose is, because I think it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, so Punts for Purpose is an initiative. Really got to give the credit to my wife. It was kind of her idea. She came up with the Punts for Purpose. We've done some things similar in the past, but it's for every punt down inside the 20-yard line this year. My wife and I are donating $1,000 to Compassion International for their Fight for First program. And it's super cool. I mean, we've already raised a little over, I think, 100K. So we're rocking and rolling, and hopefully can make a huge difference with Compassion and just with all the good work that they do. And if you don't know what Compassion does, I really, really strongly encourage you to look it up.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about them. I mean, a lot more, because it's compassion.com. People can go learn about the child sponsorship program that they have. You mentioned the Fight for First, which I want to talk about in a second as well. But you got other punters to align and join with this, haven't you? How's that worked out, and how's that been?
Yeah, no, it's something that me and my wife were no doubt going to do. And then we were sitting there talking one day this offseason, and we were like, man, it'd be really cool if we could kind of unite all the punters. Because the specialist universe is kind of a close-knit group anyways. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to start reaching out to guys. So I reached out to the guys that I knew personally and had their phone number. And a lot of them were like, yeah, absolutely. A lot of them were like, let me think about it. And then I was like, you know what? Like, let me just take a shot in the dark here. And I honestly just slid into their DMs on Instagram and was just like, hey, like, this is what's going on. This is what we're going to do. Would love to have you involved, trying to get as many people as possible, raise as much money as possible. And I was very humbled by the response. You could definitely see that God was at work in it all. And just the response of people were like, yeah, absolutely. I'll do a game. I'll do the whole season. Tressway, he's one who was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll do the whole season. And it was very, very humbling to have somebody or have multiple people get behind a passion that you're so passionate about, something that's near and dear in your heart, and them take and run with it also. It was really cool. I think we ended up having just 2 weeks ago, not this past weekend, but 2 weeks ago, was a Punt for Purpose week. And we had 13 punters across the NFL, which is basically half of the punters in the NFL do it that week. And we had 18 punts inside the 20 for the whole week with that 1 week. And so it was really cool to see other punters get involved and see other punters, honestly, hearts for Christ, because that's really what it boils down to. And just super humbling.
Yeah, especially this time of year when we think about Christmas and we think about, celebrating the birth of the Lord and Savior, and then understanding that, your heart is to be like Christ, right? And to serve others. And this is going for an amazing cause. Can you kind of go deeper into this Fight for First and the specific area that this is really helping a lot of people?
Yeah, so Fight for First is a program with Compassion that they take the moms while they're pregnant, and then they carry them through the pregnancy, and then a year after the baby's born. There's so many statistics that like 830 moms die a year during childbirth. There's like 4 million babies die before their first birthday. A million die on the day that they're born, just from being in poverty, honestly, not having the resources that we are so fortunate to have here in America. I mean, we're expecting our little girl any day now. And I know without the resources that we've had, I couldn't imagine going through this process. So that's really what Fight First is. They're really trying to combat that, and it really just, from everything to medical to try to get them out of poverty. I mean, it encompasses a little bit of all of it, and the numbers don't. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. There's a high success rate when compassion gets involved and is able to do this, and that's what we're raising money for, is to start more and more of these survival programs and help more and more moms and help more and more babies break it to that 1 year old, because when they're 1 year old, then you can get in the compassion centers, and then the centers really just, I mean, set them up until they go off to university, and not just the child, but that sets up the whole family, really. You can just see a shift in the whole family towards Christ, just the attitude that they have, the way compassion loves on them. And what I personally love about compassion is when we got to go to Tanzania with them, I was expecting them to be like compassion signs and different things at the centers. They have none of that. They want Jesus to get all the credit, and all, which is very much deserved. And then they partnered with local churches. So the church is really the one that is pouring into these kids, which I think is just super cool. I mean, if you ask compassion, like, hey, like, what are your goals? Their goal is to pull out. Their goal is to get out of there, and let the community get to a point where it's can sustain itself and really feed itself and do everything itself. And that's compassion's goal. It's not to always just be there and be the hand that they rely on. No, it's to help them, build them up to such a good point that they're like, hey, like, not that you don't need us anymore, but you really don't need us anymore. And then they can get out of the way and let God take over.
Yeah, I went on a trip with Compassion about a year ago with a bunch of baseball guys to the Dominican Republic,
Mhm.
and I saw in a very similar way what you're describing. I saw working through the local church. You don't see giant signs that say Compassion International at all, but you see the tangible difference that a ministry like this is making in the lives of kids and the lives of those moms, right? That you
Right.
described, in the lives of families, and they're doing it all with a Christ-centered approach. What was it about that trip that really just tugged on your heart? Because ultimately you come back from that trip and you kind of throw your hands up and say, okay, what now? And ultimately
Yeah.
the Punts for Purpose happen, but kind of take us through the mindset with that trip that you took on with your wife.
Yeah. The trip was, me and Kaylee described it the whole time being either 2 seconds from crying or 2 seconds from the greatest joy you've ever experienced in your life. And that was like the whole, I think we were there for 7 days, like the whole 7 days. It was like that. And when we got back, we were like, man, we got to do more. Like, there's has to be something else we can do. And we had already talked about Punts for Purpose. And then that's when it was really like, hey, like, we're going to use this, and this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to get other people involved. Because it was just, I say it all the time, and it might be not be the most politically correct thing to say, but I would rather be homeless in America than in poverty in Tanzania,
Hmm.
where we went. Strictly because in America you have access to the resources. If you want help, you can get help. If you there is things that you can do, to get out of that. But when you're in poverty in Tanzania, like, there's not. Sometimes you don't have running water. You don't have water at all. Like, you're catching rainwater and trying to filter it through different things to be able to drink water. It's something that I can walk to a fridge and pull out a water bottle, or turn on a faucet and wash my hands. Like, that's just doesn't. It's just not a thing for them. But the thing that stood out to me the most, even in the midst of all that, was just the joy that they had. We got to go to a Maasai community. If you don't know what a Maasai community is, it's like, take it way back, way, way back. They're living in like mud huts. They nomadic. They travel with their herds. And we got to go out and experience a church service with the Maasai community, and kind of go to their huts and the different areas. And I wish every church service I could go to for the rest of my life would be like that, strictly because you could just feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. You could feel the love that they had, for Jesus. And you could just, I mean, I didn't understand a word they were saying. They were speaking in Swahili, but I probably got more out of that one service than I have any church service I've been to in the United States. So it was just super, super cool to see them where they have so little, some could say nothing. And, but one thing they do have is a belief in Christ Jesus. And that's really the only thing we need.
Yeah, that changes you, right? Like we have so much stuff in America. We have so much, like you said, if we're homeless in America, we'd still have access to tons of things. When you go over to an impoverished country like that and you see it like I did in the DR, like you went to Tanzania, it changes your mindset, man. Like I think you even realize that if we're making 20 grand a year or something here, and you're working at a very low paying job from American standards, you're still rich compared to what you might be doing over in some of those countries. So it definitely changes your mindset for sure. It's not a coincidence, I'm guessing, that you're having one of your best years too. I'm not saying that, you wouldn't want to have your best year anyway, in terms of wanting to honor your contract and honor your teammates and do the best that you can. But this is a cool year with everything
Yeah.
going on with Punts for Purpose that you're having one of your best years.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really cool. It's funny when you find a greater purpose that you're playing for um, than just selfishness, honestly, that what you were able to put your mind to. A lot of people have been joking it's the dead strength kicking in, but it's one of those like there's a greater purpose that I'm playing for, not just Pumps for Purpose, but having a child kind of changes your mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
Having a wife that's going through pregnancy changes your mindset a little bit, and it's just one of those things that was I call it a God thing. I'm just focusing on the next kick, and each kick at a time, and just going out there and not really not really harboring on it if it's a bad result or harboring on if it's a good result, but on to the next one, on to the next one. And it's turned in so far to a good season. We still got 3 games left, and then hopefully some playoffs.
Yeah.
And I just trying to do it, just going out there one rep at a time and giving all the glory to God and taking none of the glory to myself and rocking and rolling.
Yeah, I've heard it quite a bit this year from a bunch of different people in the NFL about deflecting the glory. Those that are obviously are men of faith, and obviously you don't play football or even get involved with compassion for any glory for yourself. But when you're honored as the Falcons representative for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, that's pretty cool. How does
Yeah,
that feel? What was that like to find out you were receiving that honor?
no, it's super, super cool. And super humbling that the Falcons would even consider me. Like you said, you don't set out to win, to be nominated for that award. You set out, well, at least I set out to just be the hands and feet of the word, and stuff like the Walter Payton Man of the Year are byproducts of that. And that's when it is very rewarding to see like kind of the fruits of your labor, the fruits that you've been pouring into, sprout vines and different fruits grow off those vines, and kind of to be like, all right, yeah, like that's kind of like God reassuring, like, yeah, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, like don't let up, keep doing it, go harder, go further, like do more. That's kind of how I took it, but the Falcons got me, man. I don't know if you've seen the video of how they did it, but they told me I was doing a interview for Coos game-winning field goals, which is not uncommon around here.
Yeah.
Money. So I was in there and I was breaking down some film, man. I was rocking and rolling on it, and the next thing I know, it pops up on the screen like, "Hey, this is actually not a interview about Koo." And then they showed a video. Ashley Alcorn was on it,
Yep.
talking about that Punts Rivers has made so far. And then I don't know how they did it, but they got the 2 sponsor kids that me and my wife sponsor in Tanzania on the video. And they said Asante Sana, which is thank you in Swahili. And that's when I about lost it. That's when I had felt the tears in the eyes come in and everything when I saw our 2 sponsored children on there. And it was super cool to have some of my teammates behind me, some of the coaches, all the CR staff, PR staff. I mean, they're a huge part in all of this, and setting things up like this interview and different things along those lines that have really got the word out there, and getting it talked about. And I can't thank them enough for the help that they've put in. And then also just, man, it's just an honor, and it's just super humbling, honestly.
Yeah, this is a really good 2023 for you personally. Obviously, you don't do things like you said for yourself, but like you get the contract, you go to Tanzania, Punts for Purpose, Walter Payton Man of the Year, and maybe we might even be interrupted in this interview. People don't even realize your wife could go into labor at any moment, and you're going to be a
Yeah.
dad for the first time. How are you feeling right now?
A bunch of excitement, man. There's a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of scaredness in there. You never know what can happen during childbirth, but I'm excited. I'm ready to be a dad. My wife's going to be one of the most amazing moms you've ever seen. So we're excited to just tackle it head on, to meet our little baby girl. We don't have a name picked out yet, so I'm excited to figure out what the name's going to be.
Okay.
And just meet our baby girl. And I heard that your world changes and just like having your heart walk around in someone else's body. And I'm actually looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to trying to create another child of God out there, and really pouring into her what was poured into me at a young age, and just hopefully watching her flourish and watching her grow into a godly woman. And that's what I'm looking forward to, man.
I'll tell you something. I have one child, and it's a daughter. It's a little girl. That's what we were blessed with. My brothers have multiple kids, and I love my nephews dearly. But there is something different about having a little daughter, a little girl, and making that decision, like you said, to love her in the best way possible and to raise her in the best way possible. It is life-changing, my friend. I'm excited for you.
No, I'm super excited. My wife's super excited. A little nervous, frantically cleaning the house right now. So she's we're all a little nervous and on edge in anticipation, but we're super excited for.
Yeah, it's a good nervous. It's a good nervous for sure, Bradley Pinion. I have to ask you this funny question. I was thinking about that. Well, let me ask you this question, which is sort of funny first, and then I want to go back to faith, and then we'll wind down here. Have you ever had a fake punt pass or run in your 9 seasons as an NFL punter? I was doing statistical research and I couldn't find one. And I'm like, there's got to be one that's been put in a playbook that either didn't get called or something.
There's been plenty in the playbook, but not a single one has been called. I can throw. I promise you I can throw.
I know you can. I figured.
I've got an arm, but I know we've never called one. A lot of times it just depends on situationally stuff, but no, I've never had one called. The funny story, actually, when I was leaving college, it was my last game in college. I was leaving it early to go to the NFL. And Coach Sweeney comes up to me and one of our assistant special teams coaches in college had come up with this fake punt, and it was called Concord. It was named after my hometown. Like, we had designed it, ran it so many times in practice. And he comes up to me, Coach Sweeney does, and he might shoot me for saying this story, but he comes up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to run Concord?" It would have been like my last play in college ever.
Oh.
And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's run it." He said, "You come back for one more year, we'll run Concord." And I was like, "Well, it looks like I'm punting the ball, boss." Went out there and punted it. So it was actually the fake that the next year they ran in the Russell Athletic Bowl, where Andy Teasdall threw it to Christian Wilkinson's running down the sideline on a fake punt. That was the play. But yeah, we had a chance to run it, and I was like, I'm gonna hedge my bets on this one, and I'm just gonna go punt this ball.
The recruiter, Dabo Sweeney, trying his best to keep Bradley Pinion at school. That's a great story, Brad. That's awesome. I love that. Well, maybe there'll be one in the future here. Maybe this year. You got plenty of years left, God willing, in the NFL. You can get one or two, hopefully, in there.
That's the hope, man. Just give me one. I just want one. I don't even have to run the ball. I'll throw it, but whatever it is.
Well, the Eagles got the Cowboys a week or two ago. I was watching on a Sunday night game, and I was thinking, man, I have to imagine when you find out that play call is happening, you don't want to give it away, obviously, but you just like, all right. I mean, you talk about getting nervous for having your first child. I got to imagine it's not the same, obviously, but there's a little bit of like, all right, anxiousness.
Oh, yeah, I think I'd be so amped up I wouldn't get nervous. I would be ready to rock and roll.
Yes, ready to execute. Well, that's awesome. Let me ask you one final question here. When you think about this year, it's been so great, so many blessings and so many cool things in your life personally and for your wife as well. What's this year been like spiritually for you? This season, I'll even say, growing in your faith, ups and downs, obviously, wins and losses. That's the typical NFL season for any team. But for you personally, just kind of growing in your faith, what's this been like for you?
Yeah, so I have a good friend, John Gordon. He writes a bunch of books.
I know John well. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
he's great.
He writes a book that's called The One Word, and he kind of talks about having one word that you live your life by each year. And the word for me this past year was undaunted, and it ended up being really fitting. Going to Tanzania, going into having our first child, going into this season where we were trying to raise money for Punts for Purpose. We were trying to get this initiative off the ground to run many, many more years, to just all these bunch of different firsts, to having one of my best years, to doing all these things. It was the word like undaunted just kept coming back up. Like, I'm not afraid to do this. The Lord's got me. Whether I fail, whether it succeeds, like I'm not afraid. I'm undaunted. And that's what I kept going back to over and over again. When I've been in times of, because we haven't had the smoothest pregnancy, so times of trouble or times of not knowing what's going on, just having that undaunted mindset of being like, you know what, I'm not afraid. The Lord's not going to give me something that we can't handle. There's going to be a reason behind this. And that's just how I've lived this year. Me and my wife both. We've just been undaunted to take on the task that's at hand, to take on Punts for Purpose, to take on being parents, to take on all these different things, and not being scared to do so, and having that undaunted mentality of being like, you know what, I'm going after this, and I'm going after this fully with the Lord by my side, really walking in front of me, paving the way, and all I got to do is just keep on that path.
Yeah, undaunted. That's great. Have you had any time to think about a word for 2024 yet, or is it just a little chaotic with an NFL season and a child on the way?
Yeah, I hadn't honestly had time to think about it yet. I usually try to as we get close to the new year, but my mind's been a little all over the place with the baby coming and making a push for the playoffs. So,
of course. Well, listen, this was an awesome conversation. I'm glad we were able to connect again, Brad. I hope to see you in a couple months at PAO, and just excited for you and your newborn and Kaylee, and obviously for the rest of this season and hopefully the playoffs. Punts for Purpose and compassion.com. That's the website people can go to learn more and be a part of this great program.
And if you want to donate or get involved with Punts for Purpose, it's compassion.com/punts for purpose. You can see what punters have been on there. You can donate straight to Punts for Purpose. Like I said, it's going to the Fight for First program. So if you want to get involved, if you want to, for the last however many games of the season, donate for your favorite punter, do it. We're encouraging fans to get involved. So compassion.com/punts for purpose. And it's also on my Instagram, bpinion05. It's at the top.
Perfect. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask if fans listening could be a part of this, and certainly they can. So compassion.com/punts for purpose, and I'll link to it in the show notes, and this will be awesome. So Brad, you're great, buddy. Thank you for coming back on the show, and please tell your wife hello. I'm sure the last thing you need to tell her is hello from me when you're going to be having a child soon, but we appreciate you guys and certainly be praying for you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks so much for watching today on Sports Spectrum. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos. And if you want more stories on sports and faith, check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.